Pontiac, a General Motors car brand once synonymous with the wide-track look and with building excitement, manufactured its last car in early 2010 and was lost to the memories of the past after selling 40 million vehicles over its 84-year existence.
Pontiac was the brand that brought the muscle car to the mass market under its flamboyant general manager, John Z. DeLorean, and helped Burt Reynolds elude Sheriff Buford T justice in Smokey and the Bandit. It also helped to condition the baby boomer generation to lust after horsepower, but then went on to build commodified and forgettable cars in its later years, and then officially died October 31st, 2010. An exact single reason why Pontiac failed is impossible to identify, as it's more a case of death by 1,000 cuts. Many agree that Pontiac's troubles were self-inflicted, while General Motors blamed its dire financial conditions it suffered in the 2000s that ultimately resulted in the bankruptcy of General Motors. So let's take a look back at how Pontiac came to be, its wild ride to become an iconic American automotive nameplate, and its sad later life and eventual demise. The Pontiac brand was introduced as a lower-priced companion make for General Motors' more expensive line of Oakland automobiles in 1926. A high-quality Pontiac model with a 6-cylinder engine was designed to sell for the price of a 4-cylinder car and became an instant success, and thus Pontiac had been born. The body styles of the model included a sedan with both 2 and 4 doors, a Landau coupe called the Sport Phaeton, a Sport Landau sedan, a Sport Cabriolet, and a Sport Roadster. Eventually, Pontiac overtook Oakland in popularity and sales during the Great Depression and displaced it entirely by 1933. The Pontiac brand was named after the famous Ottawa Native tribe chief, for whom the city of Pontiac, Michigan was also named, and where Pontiac cars were manufactured at the time. Pontiac became an integral division brand within General Motors and saw steady sales increases and rising popularity for the first half of the 20th century. During this time, Pontiac became known as the affordable and sporty division of GM that sold well as a wise economic choice without sacrificing power. In the 1950s, Pontiac did outperform Oldsmobile and Buick in terms of sales. Here are some notable highlights from Pontiac in the early years. In 1935, Pontiac debuted new technical innovations, including all-steel roofs, hydraulic brakes, safety plate glass, and synchro mesh transmissions. In 1950, Pontiac introduced the Catalina trim designation. Initially, the name was used to denote 2-door pillarless hardtop body styles, first appearing in the 1950 Chieftain 8 and Deluxe 8 models. In 1959, the Catalina became a separate model, as the entry-level full-size Pontiac. It was part of Pontiac's full-size line until 1981. During the mid-1950s, Pontiac began to take steps to differentiate itself from its other GM stablemate brands as the division that designed and built performance automobiles. In 1956, 42-year-old Simon "Bunky" Knudsen became general manager of Pontiac, alongside new heads of engineering, Pete Estes and John DeLorean. Knudsen immediately began reworking the brand's image by getting rid of the brand's Indian head logo and silver stripes from all of Pontiac's models. In 1957, one of the first examples of the image change was the introduction of the Bonneville trim line, named after the Salt Pan Lane feature located in northwestern Utah and the site of many land speed record achievements. The Bonneville was a limited edition Star Chief convertible that showcased Pontiac's first fuel-injected engine offering. Approximately 630 Bonnevilles were built for 1957, each with a retail price of nearly $5,800, which was the price of a new Cadillac. Pontiac called the Bonneville America's #1 road car and raised new interest in the brand. Between the late 1950s and mid-1960s, Pontiac steadily transformed its image into its performance brand aspirations. In 1959, Pontiac debuted its wide-track design aesthetic. Wide-track was a marketing term for a design feature that increased the width between the front and rear wheels 5 inches over that of other related GM division platform models. This improved handling and appearance of the cars and gave them less of the wide-body, narrow-track look of vehicles such as vintage motorhomes. The cars were well received by the public and the press and earned Pontiac accolades from Motor Trend magazine, who picked the entire Pontiac line as 1959 Car of the Year. The dreamy 1960 wide-track Pontiac ads created by artists Fitzpatrick and Kaufman are icons of the time when Americans were fully ready to embrace image, youthfulness, style, and most of all, excitement. Pontiac's decade had indeed arrived. In 1965, John DeLorean became general manager of Pontiac. He is credited with helping Pontiac create the modern muscle car by the relatively simple process of placing a large displacement, high horsepower engine into its Le Mans midsize car, thus creating the 1964 Pontiac Le Mans GTO. In 1966, the GTO became not just a trim level for the Le Mans, but a separate Pontiac model. Then, in 1967, the Firebird was launched as Pontiac's response to Ford's wildly successful Mustang 2+2 coupe. Chevrolet at the time also launched the Camaro, its platform-sharing mate during the same year. In 1968 and 1969, things got even wilder for the Firebird and the GTO when Pontiac launched the GTO Judge and the Firebird Trans Am. These versions included larger engines with higher power outputs, upgraded suspension for improved handling, as well as appearance modifications such as exclusive hoods, spoilers, fog lights, wheels, and unique graphics. In 1973, the Firebird Trans Am received its iconic Rising Phoenix hood graphic, which some people nicknamed the Screaming Chicken. Sales were strong for most of the 1960s, but beginning in the late 1960s, existential threats such as the gas crisis, rising insurance rates for motorists, and stricter emissions and safety regulations served to rein in the sales of the powerful, fuel-thirsty muscle cars. Over the course of a few years, horsepowers were reduced on new model offerings and sales suffered. Pontiac's car model offerings went from sporty and muscular to heavier and less powerful personal luxury type cars. The Firebird, however, was an anomaly in that sales remained strong, no doubt helped by a certain movie where the Trans Am and a guy named Bandit shared starring roles. In 1981, Pontiac rolled out its We Build Excitement marketing campaign that coincided with the release of its newly redesigned Firebird and Trans Am model. This was Pontiac's attempt to find a new direction and purpose by suggesting the positive performance and emotional attributes of driving a 6000, a Grand Am, a Grand Prix, a Firebird, or a Fiero. The Fiero, launched in 1984, was a surprise sales success. Most of the cars sold in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s were sad, unexciting versions of GM's division shared platforms that attempted to capitalize on past Pontiac glory days with cars that suffered from weak engines, hideous styling, and severe cost-cutting. For some reason, Pontiac decided that it would become the brand known for egregious overuse of plastic body side cladding. They seemed to slap that stuff on everything. There really wasn't much excitement to be had from Pontiac in its later years, so it seemed. In fact, Pontiac even launched a minivan, the Transport, in 1990. It was nicknamed the Dustbuster for obvious reasons. Another curious decision on Pontiac's part was the decision to design and sell the Aztek. It still appears on the top 10 worst car lists even to this day. Beauty is subjective, but most people agree that this thing was hideous. So there you have it, an automotive division and brand of General Motors that saw a meteoric rise to great success with a storied history to a brand that perished for a variety of reasons. Poor product planning, intense competition from foreign brands, cost-cutting in design and materials, changing consumer tastes, and from a corporate parent that had too many brands all competing for a decreasing pool of buyers during an economic downturn. When it was time to prune some brands from the corporate tree during GM's restructuring in 2009, Pontiac was one of the brands chosen, primarily because of its past sales performance, and because it cannibalized sales from other GM brands such as Chevrolet. If one really wants a modern version of the Trans Am though, there is hope. A specialty car builder located in Florida, called Trans Am Worldwide, will build you a Trans Am Super Duty.
It's a modified Chevrolet Camaro with Trans Am styling featuring a 1,000 horsepower engine. And yes, I do want one. Pontiac is probably missed by some, but in reality they really hadn't offered anything exciting or notable in a very long time before it perished. And when they did, with the Pontiac G8, it was too late and came at the wrong time. People simply lost interest and demonstrated it by not turning up in the showrooms. In the end, GM could no longer justify creating new products for an indifferent public and cut its losses by executing the iconic brand in 2009, with its last deeply discounted car sold in 2010. It was an undignified end to a once mighty automotive brand.
Hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching. I'm your host, Jay Burton. If you like the video, you'll love our channel. Please subscribe below. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram.